Now friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. We spend a lot of time looking back at the Clone Wars period and the original trilogy, but today we're going to be looking forward into the dark shadow of darkness that the First Order has dragged across the galaxy. Today we're going to be looking at what will happen during Star Wars Episode 9. Because it's Star Wars, we can probably assume that somehow the First Order will be defeated in Episode 9. Today I want to take a deeper look at what we know about the First Order and what exactly its main flaws are. The First Order was created out of the ashes of the Empire. The Emperor's protege, a man named Gallius Rax, no idea what he looks like, but let's assume it's James Franco, post-sexual misconduct allegations. Anyway, Palpatine wanted Gallius Rax to carry out his contingency plan, something we've covered in depth in other videos, but basically he wanted to completely destroy all the terrible parts of the Empire and start anew with a small, specially selected group of Imperials in the unknown region. Palpatine was a vindictive bastard, and if he couldn't have the galaxy, then he sure as hell wasn't going to give it to the rebellion. So this plan also involved the destruction of many Imperial worlds, some of which were loyal to the cause. Anyway, the Imperial Remnant, as they were called, was severely depleted and low on resources when they finally escaped from the core center of the galaxy to the unknown region. This was a part of the galaxy that was notoriously difficult to navigate because there was no accurate mapped hyperspace lanes of the area. On top of that, there were huge amounts of unmapped gravitational anomalies and black holes. Part of Palpatine's plan had originally been setting up a variety of different observation posts on the outer edge of the galaxy to find potential routes to the unknown region. Palpatine also befriended a talented Chiss military leader named Thrawn, whose people were from the unknown region. Palpatine gathered intel about the area from Thrawn. But even with all this prep work, nothing could really prepare the First Order from the horrors they would witness in the unknown region. While searching for a new home, hordes of mysterious and terrifying aliens attacked the First Order with strange weapons and technology that had been developed independently from the rest of the galaxy. It wasn't until an individual named Snoke encountered the First Order and sent a mysterious group of navigators known as the Attendants to aid the First Order did they finally figure out how to navigate the dangerous hyperspace lanes of the unknown region. This ordeal hardened the First Order. It was probably all a part of Emperor Palpatine's plan to further thin out all the weak individuals from the organization. This made the First Order more fanatic and desperate than the Galactic Empire, and that's reflected in their policies. First, the First Order never established a permanent base. Instead, they elected to keep their resources invested in a massive 60-kilometer wide starship. You see, the First Order saw their time in the unknown region as temporary, and it was only supposed to be one step in their journey to reclaim the Empire. This also fit their military strategy. They wanted to bring their home base along with them on their way to assaulting the New Republic. This would drastically shorten their supply lines during an offensive. And although the First Order did take over several worlds in the unknown region, they usually stripped mined them of resources and sentient beings and fed them into the First Order war machine. Rose Tico and her sister were from one of these worlds that had been exploited, and just look how pissed off she was. Now, this idea of quickly burning through worlds and resources makes sense for a rapid military buildup, but in the long run, it left many depleted and dying worlds in their wake and a lot of pissed off Rose Ticos. The First Order needs to completely change their governing tactics in order to really bring about peace and stability for the rest of the galaxy. Even the Galactic Empire understood the need to promote economic growth and spread resources amongst its population. Strip mining entire regions of the galaxy for resources is not a sustainable approach for the First Order to take. It would also help any opposition force like the Resistance to quickly explode in numbers. At the end of the day, even authoritarian government needs to keep society at a reasonably happy state, or else the amount of resources they'll need to invest in suppressing their people will quickly overwhelm their economic production. What did we as Americans learn when we invaded Iraq in the early 2000s? We learned that even if a regime you just took down was full of scumbags, it's probably not a good idea to completely get rid of the entire government and military structure and try to create your new one out of scratch. The First Order not only defeated the New Republic, they destroyed their capital system and killed all of their top leaders. As incompetent and bloated as the New Republic was, a large galactic government needs a lot of administration and bureaucrats to make sure basic things are running. And believe it or not, it does take some skill and experience to maintain the basic services and infrastructure in the Republic. Without the Galactic Ministry of Transportation constantly updating and monitoring major hyperspace lanes, all of a sudden your trip from Coruscant to Corellia might be interrupted by a wandering planet. And without the hated Republic Tax Collection Agency, well, nothing would work at all. What we saw happen in Iraq post-invasion was the removal of pro-Saddam Sunni Ba'athist party members from government. In the elections that followed, which created the transitional Iraqi government, most Sunnis boycotted the vote, which meant the Shia won most of the government position. The Shiites in Iraq had been oppressed under Saddam's regime for decades, so it was only natural that they wanted payback, which helped erupt an internal civil war between the Shia and Sunnis. The Shia also had no experience in governing or government thanks to the fact that the Ba'athists had oppressed them for many decades. This also meant that they were completely incompetent, and corruption and revenge was basically their first priority. Chaos was everywhere in Iraq. So the First Order made a crucial mistake by exploding the New Republic government. There are actually many pro-imperial members of Senate, especially in the centrist political party in the New Republic Senate. They most likely would have welcomed the First Order or at least been able to work with them. That was the beauty of Palpatine's transition from Galactic Republic to Empire. Sure, a few senators or governors were arrested and maybe shot out of an airlock, but for the most part, the Galactic Republic transitioned very smoothly to the Galactic Empire. Most of the departments in office that ran the government stayed the same with the same staff and leaders, and the only thing they really needed to change was the name on the door. Palpatine understood that gradual change was a much better alternative to just blowing up the Senate. By gradually changing the power structure, Palpatine was able to do a lot of great things without any kind of conflict. The First Order, on the other hand, have inherited a failed state, which is completely messed up, and they hardly have any experience in handling rebuilding a government. The contingency plan had saw to the execution and death of most of the very political and bureaucratic political leaders within the Empire. All that was left were warriors and killers, hardly the type of people you want running your government. The one benefit of demilitarizing the Republic Navy was that most of those resources were reallocated to planetary defense forces. Although this meant there was no federal force to oppose the First Order and no united offense to stop them, it also means now that the First Order will have to individually hunt down and destroy each and every planetary defense force, which will be extremely costly and time-consuming. Had the New Republic military been more centralized, the destruction of their high command would have thrown their forces in chaos and probably would have led to a galactic-wide surrender immediately. This would have been the best outcome for the First Order. All of this extra fighting and rooting out pockets of resistance will leave the entire galaxy in ruins. One of the ways the First Order was able to operate within New Republic territory without revealing themselves was by using proxies like criminal organizations. The Nikto originally were a species that had worked for the Hutts, but after the Hutt Empire was destroyed, the Nikto took over their massive spice enterprise. The First Order, through a proxy force they worked with known as the Maxian Warriors, had funneled billions of credits to the organization, making them far more powerful than they should be. Funding organizations like the Nikto, who have no allegiance to anyone and only just want your money, is a recipe for disaster. It's another lesson that anyone who studies American foreign policy and foreign internal defense will be well versed in. From that asshat bin Laden to the Shia militias we supported in Syria, who were clearly controlled by Iran. There's always a danger in giving scumbags money, weapons, and training because you'll never know who they'll fight next. Now, if Kylo Ren is the leader of the First Order, and not someone else like that ragdoll Hux or maybe the Spirit of Palpatine, you'll have a very troubled and somewhat erratic leader leading the First Order. I mean, I wouldn't put this guy in charge of a lemonade stand, let alone run an entire empire. He's clearly emotionally unstable, has some serious daddy issues, has an extremely high waistline, and acts completely irrational on a regular basis. During the Battle of Crate, seeing Luke Skywalker makes Kylo Ren completely halt his offensive, which allows the rest of the Resistance to escape. He clearly could have ended the war right then and there. Then we have the pursuit of the Resistance fleet. Again, Kylo Ren hesitates to fire on a Mon Cala cruiser because he senses his mother on the bridge. Another mistake that could have been very damaging, but luckily this time his wingman wasn't as mentally unbalanced. You see, Kylo Ren doesn't really understand who he is, nor do the viewers. Is he a bad guy or is he a good guy exposed to tremendous suffering and evil? Is he redeemable? Does he actually want to run the First Order, or is he just interested in destroying everything that makes him feel insecure? So yes, Kylo Ren is a loose cannon and completely unpredictable. He's also an individual that could definitely lead to the collapse of the First Order. So there you have it, guys. Those are 5 reasons why I think the First Order could collapse and why they're a much weaker organization than they seem on paper. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Also, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. As usual, thanks for joining us today. If you're watching this, you are Generation Tech.